1. Control what you can control. One of the most powerful lessons in Stoicism is understanding the difference between what is within your control and what is outside your control. This simple idea has the power to completely transform the way you think, react, and live your life. Most people suffer mentally and emotionally because they spend their lives fighting against things they were never meant to control. They worry constantly about what other people think of them. They become frustrated when situations do not go according to plan. They stress about the future, fear uncertainty, and replay painful memories from the past over and over again. As a result, their minds become exhausted, anxious, and emotionally unstable. The Stoics believe that much of human suffering comes from trying to control external events instead of mastering internal reactions. According to Stoic philosophy, there are only a few things truly under your power: your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, your discipline, your choices, and the way you respond to life. Everything else exists outside your control. You cannot control other people's opinions, the weather, unexpected problems, betrayal, aging, death, or many of the circumstances life places before you. The more you fight against this reality, the more frustration you create for yourself. Think about how many people lose their peace because they are obsessed with controlling the opinions of others. They constantly seek approval and become emotionally affected by criticism. One negative comment can ruin their confidence for days. One rejection can make them question their worth. Stoicism teaches that this is emotional slavery because your peace becomes dependent on external people and circumstances. A mentally strong person refuses to hand that power to others. They understand that no matter how kind, talented, or successful you become, there will always be someone who misunderstands you, dislikes you, or criticizes you. Trying to control everyone's perception is impossible. The Stoic accepts this truth and focuses instead on living according to principles and values. This lesson becomes especially important during difficult times. When problems arise, most people immediately panic. They ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They waste energy complaining, blaming others, or wishing reality were different. But Stoicism teaches that emotional resistance only increases suffering. Mentally strong people focus on what can still be controlled even during chaos. They may not control the situation itself, but they can control their response to it. This mindset creates resilience. Instead of collapsing under pressure, they adapt calmly and intelligently. Imagine two people facing the exact same problem. One person reacts emotionally, complains constantly, and becomes consumed by anger and fear. The other person remains calm, thinks clearly, and focuses on solutions. Both individuals face the same challenge, but their mindset creates completely different outcomes. This is the power of Stoicism. It teaches that circumstances alone do not determine your peace. Your response does. The Stoics also believe that trying to control everything creates endless anxiety because life itself is unpredictable. Human beings often fear uncertainty because they want guarantees. They want certainty about the future, certainty about relationships, certainty about success, and certainty about life itself. But life cannot offer perfect certainty. Unexpected events can happen at any moment. A Stoic prepares their mind for this reality instead of pretending life will always remain comfortable. This preparation creates emotional strength because when challenges arrive, they are not completely destroyed by them. One of the greatest examples of this mindset appears in everyday situations. Imagine someone insults you publicly. Most people immediately become emotional because they feel attacked. Their mood changes instantly. Anger takes over. They replay the insult repeatedly in their minds. But the Stoic asks a different question. Do I need to surrender my peace because of another person's words? The answer is no. The insult only gains power if you allow it to control your emotions. This is why Stoicism teaches that your reaction is always more important than the event itself. Learning this principle also changes the way you deal with failure. Many people become mentally weak after setbacks because they focus entirely on outcomes they cannot fully control. They may work hard for success but still experience rejection or disappointment. Stoicism teaches that your responsibility is to give your best effort, not to guarantee perfect results. Results are influenced by many external factors. But your effort, discipline, and attitude always remain within your control. This mindset protects your peace because you stop tying your self-worth entirely to outcomes. The modern world constantly encourages people to focus on external things. Society teaches people to obsess over popularity, status, appearance, wealth, and public approval. But these things can disappear at any moment. Stoicism teaches that real stability comes from developing inner strength instead of depending on external circumstances. A person with inner discipline and emotional control remains strong even when life becomes difficult. There is also tremendous freedom in accepting what you cannot control. When you stop trying to force life to obey your every desire, your mind becomes lighter. You waste less energy worrying about impossible things. You become calmer because you understand that peace does not come from controlling everything around you. Peace comes from controlling yourself. Mentally strong people know that life will sometimes be unfair. They know people may disappoint them. They know plans may fail. But they also know that no external event has the power to destroy their inner character unless they allow it. This is what makes them unshakable. Their confidence and peace come from within rather than from circumstances. Stoicism does not teach passivity or weakness. It does not mean accepting failure without effort. Instead, it teaches wisdom. Focus your energy where it can actually make a difference. Take action where action is possible. Let go of what cannot be controlled. This mindset prevents unnecessary suffering and creates clarity during difficult moments. When you fully understand this lesson, your entire perspective changes. Criticism loses much of its power over you. Fear decreases because you stop trying to predict and control every possible outcome. Stress becomes easier to manage because you focus only on what truly matters. You begin living with more clarity, discipline, and emotional balance. 2. Master your emotions. One of the greatest signs of true mental strength is the ability to remain calm when life becomes difficult. Most people believe strength is about physical power, loud confidence, or dominating others, but Stoicism teaches something completely different. Real strength is mastering yourself. A person who cannot control their emotions becomes controlled by them. Anger controls their words. Fear controls their decisions. Jealousy controls their thoughts. Stress controls their peace. This is why the Stoics believed emotional mastery was one of the highest forms of wisdom a human being could develop. In today's world, emotional reactions have become normal. People react instantly to criticism, disappointment, insults, and frustration. A single negative comment online ruins someone's mood for the entire day. A small argument destroys relationships. Temporary setbacks cause people to lose hope completely. Many people live as prisoners of their emotions because they never learned how to control them. Instead of responding wisely, they react impulsively. Stoicism teaches that this lack of emotional discipline creates suffering not only for yourself but also for the people around you. The Stoics understood that emotions themselves are natural. Feeling sadness, anger, fear, or disappointment does not make you weak. What matters is whether those emotions control your actions. A mentally strong person feels emotions deeply but does not allow emotions to become their master. They pause before reacting. They think before speaking. They remain calm enough to make wise decisions even during difficult situations. This ability creates enormous power because calmness allows clear thinking while emotional chaos destroys judgment. Think about how many mistakes people make when emotions take over. Some destroy friendships because of uncontrolled anger. Others ruin opportunities because fear prevents them from taking action. Some allow jealousy to poison their minds while others make reckless decisions because they cannot control temporary emotions. Most regret in life comes from emotional reactions made in moments of weakness. Stoicism teaches that emotional discipline protects you from unnecessary suffering. One of the strongest Stoic principles is understanding that external events do not directly control your emotions. Instead, your interpretation of those events shapes how you feel. For example, imagine two people receiving criticism. One person immediately becomes defensive, angry, and insecure. The other listens calmly, learns from useful feedback, and ignores unnecessary negativity. The same event happened to both individuals, but their reactions created completely different emotional outcomes. This is why Stoicism teaches that your response matters more than the situation itself. The Stoics believed anger was especially dangerous because it clouds judgment and weakens self-control. When people are angry, they say things they later regret. They act recklessly. They damage relationships and create problems that could have been avoided with patience. Stoicism teaches that anger often comes from unrealistic expectations. People become angry because reality did not match what they wanted. But mentally strong people understand that life will never always go according to plan. They learn to adapt instead of exploding emotionally. Imagine how powerful you become when insults no longer control your peace. Many people hand emotional power to strangers without realizing it. Someone says something negative, and suddenly their entire mood changes. Their confidence disappears. Their mind becomes consumed with anger or sadness. Stoicism teaches that this happens because people allow external opinions to determine their internal state. But a mentally strong person understands that another person's words only have power if you choose to accept them emotionally. This lesson also applies during stressful situations. Life will always contain problems, setbacks, disappointments, and uncertainty. The question is not whether difficulties will appear. The question is how you will respond when they do. Most people panic under pressure because they never train their minds for adversity. But Stoicism teaches preparation. The Stoics regularly reminded themselves that challenges are part of life. Because of this mindset, they were less shocked when hardship arrived. They understood that emotional panic solves nothing. Calm thinking creates solutions while emotional reactions create confusion. Emotional mastery also means controlling fear. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions human beings experience. Fear stops people from chasing dreams, speaking honestly, taking risks, or changing their lives. Many people remain trapped in unhappy situations simply because fear controls them. Stoicism teaches that courage is not the absence of fear but the ability to act despite fear. Mentally strong people understand that growth often requires discomfort. They refuse to allow fear to make all their decisions. Another dangerous emotion is jealousy. Many people destroy their peace by constantly comparing themselves to others. Social media has made this even worse. People compare their appearance, success, relationships, money, and lifestyles to what they see online. As a result, they feel insecure, unhappy, and emotionally exhausted. Stoicism teaches that comparison is a thief of peace because it shifts your focus away from your own growth. A Stoic focuses on self-improvement rather than competing endlessly with others. The Stoics also valued silence and patience during emotional moments. Most people react immediately when emotions rise. They argue instantly, send emotional messages, or make decisions without thinking clearly. But mentally strong people understand the power of pausing. Sometimes silence protects your peace more than words ever could. A calm response during conflict often prevents unnecessary damage. Stoicism teaches that emotional restraint is not weakness but wisdom. One of the most important aspects of emotional mastery is self-awareness. You cannot control emotions you do not understand. The Stoics practiced reflection regularly because they wanted to understand their own thoughts and reactions. They observed their emotions instead of blindly obeying them. This awareness gave them greater control over their minds. Many people today react emotionally without ever questioning why they feel the way they do. Stoicism teaches you to examine your thoughts carefully. Mastering your emotions does not mean suppressing everything you feel. It means creating balance. It means understanding that emotions are temporary and should not control permanent decisions. A mentally strong person experiences anger without becoming cruel, sadness without becoming hopeless, and fear without becoming paralyzed. They understand that emotional stability creates inner peace. The modern world constantly encourages emotional reactions. Outrage spreads quickly online. Arguments dominate conversations. People are rewarded for reacting dramatically instead of thinking deeply. But Stoicism teaches the opposite path. It teaches calmness, patience, self-control, and rational thinking. This path is difficult because emotional reactions feel natural. But over time, emotional discipline creates enormous strength. Imagine facing criticism without losing confidence. Imagine dealing with stress without panicking. Imagine remaining calm while others lose control around you. This is the power emotional mastery creates. You become harder to manipulate because your emotions no longer control your actions. You think more clearly, make better decisions, and maintain peace during difficult moments. 3. Learn the power of silence. Silence is one of the most powerful weapons a person can develop, yet most people completely misunderstand it. In today's world, everyone feels pressured to constantly speak, react, defend themselves, and prove their value to others. Social media has made people addicted to attention, validation, and endless noise. Many people believe the loudest person in the room is the strongest, but the Stoics believed the opposite. Real strength is often quiet. A person who controls their emotions, controls their words, and remains calm under pressure carries a power that emotional people can never understand. Silence is not weakness. Silence is discipline. It is emotional control. It is wisdom. The moment you stop reacting to everything around you, you begin taking back your power. A mentally strong person does not waste energy trying to win every argument or respond to every insult. They understand that peace is more valuable than proving a point. In a world full of emotional reactions, silence becomes a form of mastery. Most people speak too much because they fear being ignored, misunderstood, or forgotten. They constantly explain themselves because they crave approval from others. But the Stoics understood that endless talking often reveals insecurity rather than confidence. Truly confident people do not feel the need to constantly prove themselves. They let their actions speak louder than words. Think about how many problems in life begin because someone reacted emotionally instead of remaining calm. One angry sentence can destroy a friendship. One impulsive reaction can ruin opportunities. One emotional argument can create years of regret. This is why Stoicism teaches self-control over speech. Wise people understand that words cannot be taken back once spoken. Silence gives you time to think before emotions take control. It allows wisdom to enter situations where anger would normally create chaos. The more control you have over your tongue, the more control you have over your life. Silence also protects your emotional energy. Every unnecessary argument drains the mind. Every emotional reaction steals peace from your spirit. Weak people waste hours trying to prove themselves to people who were never willing to understand them in the first place. But mentally strong people understand that not every battle deserves their attention. Sometimes walking away peacefully is the greatest victory. The Stoics believed emotional reactions give other people power over you. If someone can easily provoke anger, frustration, or insecurity within you, then they control your emotions. A Stoic refuses to hand over that kind of power. Instead of reacting impulsively, they remain calm and emotionally disciplined. Silence becomes their shield. It protects their dignity and inner peace from unnecessary conflict. A calm mind is difficult to manipulate because it refuses to react emotionally to every situation. Another reason silence is powerful is because it increases awareness. Most people are too busy speaking to notice what is happening around them. But quiet people observe carefully. They notice behavior, intentions, emotions, and patterns that others completely miss. The Stoics believed wisdom begins with observation. When you spend less time trying to impress people with words, you begin learning more about human nature. Many people reveal their true character if you simply stay silent long enough. Some reveal jealousy through their actions. Others reveal dishonesty, selfishness, or insecurity. Silence allows you to understand people deeply because you are no longer distracted by the need to constantly respond. This creates emotional intelligence and better judgment. A wise person listens more than they speak because they understand that learning is more valuable than talking endlessly. Silence is especially powerful during moments of anger. Anger destroys clear thinking and creates regret faster than almost any other emotion. Most people say things during emotional moments that they later wish they could erase forever. The Stoics described anger as temporary madness because it blinds people from reason and self-control. A mentally strong person understands that emotional reactions often make situations worse instead of better. This is why silence during moments of anger becomes a sign of maturity. It creates space between emotion and action. Instead of reacting immediately, you allow your mind to cool down before making decisions. Anyone can lose control emotionally. That requires no discipline at all. But remaining calm while provoked requires real strength. The ability to stay peaceful when others expect emotional chaos is one of the highest forms of self-mastery. In modern society, silence has become uncomfortable for many people because they are addicted to distraction. They constantly surround themselves with entertainment, noise, conversations, and social media because silence forces them to face themselves. But the Stoics valued silence because it created self-awareness. Quiet moments allow you to reflect deeply on your life, your habits, your goals, and your mindset. Growth often happens in silence. The strongest people are usually built during lonely seasons when nobody is watching them struggle. Silence teaches independence because it forces you to become comfortable with your own thoughts. A person who cannot sit alone quietly often becomes emotionally dependent on external validation and attention. But a Stoic learns to enjoy solitude peacefully. This creates inner stability that cannot easily be destroyed by rejection or loneliness. Silence also protects your goals and ambitions. Many people talk constantly about what they plan to do, but they rarely take action. They announce their dreams before earning results because they seek recognition too early. But Stoicism teaches that actions matter more than words. Mentally strong people move quietly while staying focused on their goals. They do not need applause from strangers to stay motivated. They work in silence and allow results to speak for them later. This protects their energy from negativity, jealousy, and unnecessary opinions. Not everyone deserves access to your plans. Sometimes speaking less about your goals increases discipline because your attention remains focused on execution rather than validation. Quiet progress is often the most powerful progress. There is also a certain presence that silent people naturally carry. Calm and disciplined individuals often command respect without needing to demand attention. Their energy feels controlled, stable, and powerful because they are not emotionally scattered. Think about wise leaders throughout history. The most respected individuals were often thoughtful and calm rather than loud and impulsive. Their words carried weight because they spoke carefully. When you speak less, people pay closer attention whenever you finally do speak. Silence increases the value of your words because you no longer waste them carelessly. A person who constantly talks loses mystery and weakens their presence. But someone who remains calm and composed creates quiet influence wherever they go. The Stoics also believed silence protects peace in relationships. Many conflicts continue simply because people refuse to let go of their pride. Everyone wants the final word. Everyone wants to prove they are right. But mentally strong people understand that peace is often more important than ego. This does not mean allowing disrespect or accepting mistreatment. It means understanding that some arguments are meaningless and not worth destroying your peace over. Silence can prevent unnecessary damage because it stops emotional situations from growing worse. Sometimes the wisest decision is choosing calmness over conflict. Emotional maturity means understanding when speaking will help and when silence is the better choice. Ultimately, silence is not about hiding from the world. It is about mastering yourself within the world. It is about learning emotional discipline in a society filled with noise, distractions, and impulsive reactions. When you become comfortable with silence, you become harder to manipulate because your emotions no longer control your behavior. You stop reacting emotionally to everything around you. You become calm under pressure, observant during conflict, and disciplined during chaos. This is what makes a person mentally strong and unshakable. The Stoics understood that mastering the tongue is part of mastering the mind. And once you master your mind, very little in life can truly disturb your peace. 4. Stop seeking validation. One of the greatest traps in modern life is the constant need for validation from other people. Many people spend their entire lives trying to be accepted, admired, and approved by everyone around them. They change their personality to fit in. They hide their true thoughts to avoid criticism. They sacrifice their values just to feel included. But the Stoics believe this behavior weakens the mind and destroys inner freedom. The moment your happiness depends on the opinions of others, you lose control over your peace. A mentally strong person understands that not everyone will like them, support them, or understand their journey, and they make peace with that reality. True confidence begins when you stop allowing outside opinions to define your worth. The Stoics taught that your character matters more than public approval. People's opinions change constantly, but your principles should remain steady. If you constantly chase validation, you will spend your life becoming a version of yourself that pleases others while slowly losing your true identity. Most people fear rejection because they connect their self-worth to the way others see them. One negative comment ruins their confidence. One criticism makes them question themselves completely. This is why so many people become emotionally exhausted. They are constantly trying to control how others perceive them. But Stoicism teaches something powerful. You cannot control other people's thoughts. No matter how kind, talented, or disciplined you are, some people will still misunderstand you, criticize you, or dislike you. That is part of life. Trying to win universal approval is impossible. The Stoics believed peace comes from focusing only on what you can control. You can control your actions, your mindset, and your values, but you cannot control everyone's opinion of you. The moment you accept this truth, a heavy burden leaves your shoulders. You stop wasting energy trying to impress people who may never appreciate you anyway. In today's world, the need for validation has become stronger than ever because of social media. Many people now measure their value through likes, comments, followers, and online attention. They constantly compare their lives to others while secretly feeling insecure inside. Social media has trained people to seek approval from strangers instead of building self-respect internally. But the Stoics would remind us that external praise is temporary and unreliable. One day people praise you, and the next day the same people criticize you. If your confidence depends on public approval, your emotions will constantly rise and fall based on other people's reactions. This creates emotional instability. A mentally strong person refuses to give strangers that kind of power over their peace. They understand that real confidence comes from self-discipline, integrity, and inner character rather than public recognition. The strongest people often move quietly without needing constant applause from the world. Seeking validation also causes people to abandon their authenticity. Many individuals pretend to be someone they are not because they fear judgment. They hide their opinions, suppress their personality, and follow the crowd simply to avoid standing out. But Stoicism teaches that living dishonestly creates inner conflict. You cannot experience true peace while pretending to be someone else. A person who constantly changes themselves for approval eventually loses connection with their true identity. Mentally strong people stay loyal to their principles even when others disagree with them. They understand that authenticity is more valuable than popularity. It is better to be respected for who you truly are than loved for a fake version of yourself. The Stoics believed wisdom requires courage, and one form of courage is the ability to remain yourself in a world constantly pressuring you to conform. Another danger of seeking validation is that it makes you emotionally dependent on others. Your mood becomes controlled by external reactions instead of internal stability. Praise makes you feel valuable, while criticism destroys your confidence. This emotional dependence creates weakness because your peace no longer belongs to you. The Stoics believed emotionally strong people should build their confidence from within rather than borrowing it from the opinions of others. Imagine how powerful it becomes when your self-worth no longer depends on applause, compliments, or recognition. You begin making decisions based on wisdom instead of fear. You stop trying to impress everyone around you. You stop explaining yourself constantly. You stop feeling destroyed by rejection because you understand rejection does not define your value. This creates emotional freedom, and emotional freedom creates peace. Many people also seek validation because they fear loneliness. They worry that if they speak honestly or follow their own path, others may reject them. So they remain silent, follow trends, and suppress their individuality to stay accepted by the crowd. But the Stoics understood that following the crowd blindly often leads people away from wisdom. Most people chase temporary pleasure, status, and attention without questioning whether those things truly create fulfillment. Mentally strong people are willing to stand alone if necessary because they value truth more than popularity. They understand that loneliness is sometimes the price of authenticity. Not everyone will understand your growth, your discipline, or your mindset. Some people may even dislike you for changing. But Stoicism teaches that inner peace matters more than social approval. It is better to walk alone with integrity than to follow the crowd while betraying yourself. Stoicism also teaches that seeking validation wastes enormous amounts of mental energy. Think about how much time people spend worrying about what others think of them. They overanalyze conversations, fear embarrassment, and constantly try to manage their image. This anxiety steals peace and distracts people from personal growth. The Stoics believed your attention should focus on improving your character rather than controlling your reputation. Reputation is unstable because it depends on people you cannot control. Character, however, belongs entirely to you. A wise person focuses more on becoming good rather than appearing good. The more you chase approval, the more emotionally trapped you become. But when you focus on discipline, honesty, and self-respect, confidence naturally grows from within. Another important Stoic lesson is understanding that criticism is unavoidable. Even the greatest people in history face judgment, rejection, and misunderstanding. No matter how successful or kind you become, someone will always find a reason to criticize you. If you fear criticism too much, you will never fully live your life. Many people remain trapped in mediocrity because they are terrified of being judged. They avoid taking risks, speaking honestly, or pursuing their dreams because they fear what others might say. But the Stoics believed courage means acting according to your values despite criticism. Mentally strong people accept that judgment is part of life. They do not allow fear of opinions to stop them from growing. Once you stop fearing criticism, you unlock a level of confidence and freedom that most people never experience. True confidence is quiet because it does not depend on external praise. A genuinely strong person does not need to constantly prove themselves to others. They know who they are without requiring constant reassurance. This is the type of confidence Stoicism teaches. Not arrogance. Not pride. But calm self-respect rooted in discipline and inner stability. A Stoic understands that external validation is temporary, but inner character lasts much longer. They focus on becoming wiser, calmer, and stronger instead of chasing attention. This mindset creates emotional independence, and emotional independence is one of the highest forms of strength. Ultimately, stopping the search for validation is one of the most freeing decisions a person can make. The moment you stop needing everyone's approval, you begin living more honestly and peacefully. You stop pretending. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop feeling controlled by praise or criticism. Instead, you focus on becoming the best version of yourself according to your own principles and values. This is what makes a person mentally strong and unshakable. The Stoics understood that freedom begins when your peace no longer depends on the opinions of others. Once you learn to validate yourself internally, the world loses much of its power over your emotions. Lesson 5, Memento Mori, remember that you will die. This may sound dark, but hear it fully before you flinch away. The Stoics practiced the regular contemplation of death not to become morbid or fatalistic, but to become fully alive. Memento Mori, remember that you will die, was not a curse or a warning. It was an invitation. An invitation to wake up, to pay attention, to stop treating your days as if they are guaranteed and start treating them as the rare and precious gifts they truly are. Most of us live as though we have unlimited time. We postpone the difficult conversation. We delay the dream. We tell ourselves we will start next week, next month, next year. And slowly, quietly, without ever making a conscious decision, we let our one life slip by in a fog of distraction and procrastination. The Stoics refused to do this. They stared directly at the reality of their mortality and let it sharpen everything. When you truly sit with the fact that your time here is finite, something profound shifts inside you. The petty irritations that consumed your morning suddenly seem laughable. The grudges you have been holding lose their weight. The people you love become more precious. The work you have been avoiding becomes more urgent. Death, the Stoics taught, is the great clarifier. It strips away everything that is unimportant and leaves only what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius meditated on death constantly, not with dread, but with a kind of bracing gratitude. He knew that each day was a gift, not a guarantee. He ruled an empire, commanded armies, and carried the weight of millions of lives, and yet he returned every morning to the simple, humbling truth that this day might be his last. That awareness did not paralyze him. It focused him. It made him present. It made him deliberate about how he spent every hour. Living with this awareness does not make you sad. It makes you alive in a way that most people never experience. It makes you grateful for ordinary moments, a conversation with someone you love, a meal shared, a sunset watched without distraction. It makes you bold enough to pursue the life you actually want rather than the one you settled for out of fear or habit. You have one life. The Stoics urge you to live it as if you know that, because you do. Stop waiting. Stop postponing. The time to begin is always now. Lesson 6. Practice voluntary discomfort. The Stoics deliberately chose hardship. They would fast when they were not hungry. They would wear thin clothing in cold weather. They would sleep on the floor when a bed was available. They would walk barefoot, sit in the cold, deny themselves luxuries they could easily afford. They did these things not as punishment, and not to prove anything to anyone else. They did them as training. They understood something that most people in the modern world have forgotten entirely: that comfort, left unchallenged, becomes a prison. When you never experience discomfort, your entire nervous system begins to organize itself around avoiding it. Every inconvenience feels like a crisis. Every frustration feels unbearable. Every setback feels catastrophic. Because you have spent your life running from anything that does not feel good, you have never developed the inner resources to handle what does not feel good. And life, no matter how carefully you arrange it, will always bring things that do not feel good. This is perhaps more relevant today than at any other point in human history. We live in an age of extraordinary convenience. Food arrives at our doors in minutes. Entertainment is available without pause. Heating and cooling remove every trace of seasonal discomfort. Every edge has been smoothed, every friction eliminated. And while there is nothing wrong with comfort in itself, the relentless, compulsive pursuit of comfort has produced a generation of people who are deeply fragile, people who crumble at criticism, who cannot sit with boredom, who cannot endure uncertainty, who have never had to dig deep because they have never had to dig at all. Voluntary discomfort is the antidote. When you choose to do hard things, when you wake up earlier than you want to, when you have the difficult conversation you have been avoiding, when you push through a workout when every part of you wants to stop, when you sit in silence instead of reaching for your phone, you are doing something far more important than the task itself. You are training your mind to know that discomfort will not destroy you. You are building the evidence, deep in your nervous system, that you can handle hard things. Start small. Fast for one meal. Take a cold shower. Wake up an hour earlier than usual. Say the true thing instead of the comfortable one. Each small act of voluntary discomfort is a deposit into an account called resilience. Over time, that account grows. And the person who has made thousands of those deposits does not fear difficulty the way others do, because they know, not as an idea but as a lived experience, that they are capable of handling whatever comes. Lesson 7. Amor fati, love your fate. Perhaps the most radical, the most demanding, and ultimately the most liberating of all Stoic teachings is this: do not merely accept what happens to you. Love it. Amor fati, the love of fate, is the Stoic practice of embracing not just the pleasant moments of life, but all of it. The suffering, the loss, the failure, the humiliation, the uncertainty, the grief. Not because these things feel good, and not because pain is something to be celebrated, but because every single thing that has happened to you is woven into the fabric of who you are. And who you are is the only thing you truly have. This is not passive resignation. It is not telling yourself that everything happens for a reason in a vague and unexamined way. Amor fati is an active, deliberate, courageous choice to stop fighting reality and start working with it. It is the decision to say, "This is what has been given to me, and I will not waste a single moment wishing it were otherwise. I will take this, all of this, and I will build something from it." Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, described amor fati as his formula for human greatness. It is the willingness to look back at your entire life, the beautiful parts and the devastating ones, and say, "I would not change a single thing." Not because everything has been easy or fair or kind, but because everything has been necessary. Every wound has taught you something that ease could not. Every loss has redirected you towards something truer. Every failure has stripped away something that was never really yours to keep. Think about the hardest thing you have ever been through. The experience that brought you to your knees. The one you would have done anything to avoid. Now ask yourself honestly, who would you be without it? What did it teach you that nothing else could have? What did it reveal about your own strength, your own depth, your own capacity to survive? Most people, when they sit with this question long enough, discover that the very things they would have changed are the things that made them who they are. This is an advanced practice, and it does not come quickly or easily. It requires a long view of your own life and a willingness to trust the process even when you cannot see where it is leading. It requires sitting with pain instead of numbing it, with uncertainty instead of forcing resolution, with grief instead of rushing past it. But when you begin to practice amor fati, when you begin to meet each moment, even the most painful ones, with openness rather than resistance, something extraordinary happens. You stop fighting your life. You stop carrying the exhausting weight of wishing things were different. And in that surrender, paradoxically, you discover a strength you never knew you had. Because you are no longer spending your energy on resistance. You are free to use it on becoming. Lesson 8. Be useful to others. Stoicism is sometimes misunderstood as a philosophy of cold self-sufficiency, the lone individual, isolated and unmoved, standing apart from the messy, emotional world of human relationships. But nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoics were deeply, profoundly committed to community, to service, to the ancient and enduring belief that human beings are not meant to live for themselves alone. We are social creatures by nature, and our health as individuals is inseparable from our health as a community. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, did not see his position as an opportunity for personal gain or pleasure. He saw it as a responsibility, a call to serve, to protect, to give everything he had in the service of something larger than himself. He wrote in his private journal, never intended for anyone else to read, that his purpose was to be useful. Not famous. Not celebrated. Not comfortable. Useful. That single word tells you everything about the Stoic vision of a life well lived. The Stoics believe that we are all connected, that each of us is a thread in a vast human fabric, and that when any thread weakens, the whole is diminished. To live well, therefore, is not just to cultivate your own mind and character in isolation. It is to contribute to the lives of others. To show up with your full effort and attention. To do your part with excellence, with honesty, and without complaint. Not because you will always be recognized for it, but because it is the right way to live. There is also a deeply practical dimension to this teaching that goes beyond ethics. Purpose is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. Study after study confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively 2,000 years ago. The people who endured the greatest hardships, who survived the most devastating circumstances, are almost always those who are living for something beyond themselves. When your resilience is fueled not just by self-interest but by a genuine commitment to being useful to others, you access a depth of motivation that simply does not exist when you are living only for yourself. When life gets hard, and it will, the person who is living only for their own comfort has very little reason to keep going when that comfort disappears. But the person who is needed, who is serving, who is contributing to something that matters beyond their own four walls, that person has every reason to rise. Ask yourself honestly, who am I showing up for? How am I contributing? What would be lost if I were not here? The Stoic does not ask these questions to measure their worth. They ask them to find their direction. Because the Stoic knows that meaning is not found. It is built, one act of genuine service at a time. Lesson 9. Guard your mind like a fortress. Of all the practices the Stoics taught, this one may be the most urgent for the world we live in today. The Stoics were profoundly aware of the power of the mind and of the critical importance of what you allow into it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Not the quality of your circumstances. Not the size of your bank account. Not the opinions of the people around you. The quality of your thoughts. Everything else flows from there. He understood something that modern neuroscience has since confirmed: the mind, left unguarded, will be colonized by whatever is loudest, most alarming, and most emotionally provocative in its environment. Fear, resentment, envy, despair, these are not forces that knock politely and wait for an invitation. They seep in through the cracks. They enter through the content you consume without thinking, the conversations you participate in without examining, the thoughts you rehearse so many times they begin to feel like truth. A mind that is not actively tended becomes a place where other people's fears and agendas take root. The Stoic practice of guarding the mind is not passive. It is an active, daily, deliberate act of sovereignty. It means choosing carefully what you pay attention to, what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, who you spend your time with, and what kinds of conversations you allow to take up space in your head. It means developing the habit of examining your thoughts rather than simply believing them. It means catching yourself mid-spiral, mid-resentment, mid-catastrophe, mid-self-pity, and asking, is this thought true? Is it useful? Is it moving me toward who I want to be, or is it pulling me away? This is not about toxic positivity. It is not about pretending that everything is fine or refusing to acknowledge difficulty. The Stoics were not naive. They lived through war, plague, exile, and loss. They knew suffering intimately. What they refused to do was allow that suffering to take up permanent residence in their minds unchallenged. They examined it. They questioned it. They chose, deliberately and repeatedly, to redirect their attention toward what was true, useful, and within their power to address. In a world that is designed, algorithmically, commercially, culturally, to keep your attention locked in a state of anxiety, outrage, and distraction, guarding your mind is an act of profound resistance. It is the decision to be the author of your inner life rather than its passive audience. The Stoics believe that you are the master of your mind, but only if you choose to be. Most people never make that choice. They live at the mercy of whatever thought arises, whatever headline appears, whatever emotion is triggered. The Stoic knows otherwise. Guard your mind. Protect it fiercely. Tend to it as you would a garden. Because what you allow to grow there will determine everything: how you see the world, how you treat others, how you face adversity, and ultimately who you become. Lesson 10. Consistency is the true measure of character. The final lesson brings all the others together, and it is perhaps the most important of all. Because you can know every Stoic teaching ever written. You can quote Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Seneca from memory. You can understand the philosophy at the deepest intellectual level. And none of it will mean anything, not a single word, if it does not change how you live your daily life. For the Stoics, philosophy was never an academic exercise. It was a practice. A daily, lived, moment-to-moment practice. And the measure of that practice was not how much you knew. It was how consistently you acted on what you knew. This is harder than it sounds. Because consistency does not ask anything of you on the good days. When things are going well, when you feel strong and clear and motivated, being virtuous is easy. Being patient is easy. Being generous is easy. The test, the real test, comes on the days when you are exhausted, when you are frustrated, when you have been disappointed or betrayed or overlooked, when every part of you wants to snap or retreat or give up. Who are you on those days? That is the question the Stoics were always asking themselves. Not who are you at your best, but who are you under pressure? Because that is who you actually are. Character is not built in the dramatic moments. It is built in the quiet, ordinary, unglamorous small ones. It is built in how you speak to someone when you are tired and have nothing left to give. It is built in whether you tell the truth when the lie would be easier. It is built in whether you keep the commitment you made when keeping it is inconvenient. It is built in whether you return to your values after you have failed to live by them, not with crushing self-judgment, but with honesty, humility, and a quiet recommitment to do better. The Stoics journaled every evening, without exception, reviewing their day not to celebrate their victories but to audit their conduct honestly. Where had they fallen short? Where had they allowed impulse to override principle? Where could they do better tomorrow? Make this your practice. Not perfection. The Stoics were never about perfection. Perfection is a fantasy that paralyzes. What the Stoics were about was return. Constant, humble, persistent return to the values they had committed to live by. You will fall short. You will lose your temper. You will make the selfish choice, the fearful choice, the easy choice when the hard one was what was needed. This is not failure. This is being human. The failure would be to stay there, to use your imperfection as a reason to stop trying. The person who falls and returns, 1,000 times over the course of a lifetime, is building something that the person who has never been tested cannot even imagine. They are building a character so deeply rooted, so thoroughly forged in the fire of daily recommitment, that when the great storms of life arrive, and they will arrive, they will not be moved. That is the Stoic ideal. Not a life without struggle. Not a life without pain or failure or doubt. But a self so solidly built, so consistently tended, that no storm can reach the roots. That is mental strength. That is what it means to be truly unshakable. And it begins not someday. It begins today. It begins now. Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius.